While I was watching it, it really felt like it truly, not only was it like a period piece, but I was like, this feels part of history. Like this feels so convincing to me that this is all like real. And I was just so in awe that like a movie of this genre could like have that effect on me.
Welcome back to the Breakroom. It's Breakroom movie review time, and this time we're talking about Godzilla Minus One. Is this the greatest Godzilla movie ever? Let's talk about. Joining us on this Godzilla panel today, we've got Coy Jandreau.
So excited to talk about Minus One, you have no idea.
He wore a short for it, folks. A short
And
for
a
it.
shirt.
And a shirt for it.
He's got Godzilla
I won't
shorts
stand
on.
up, but I got Godzilla
Yeah, you
shorts.
should see these Godzilla shorts. They come
They're
with a,
crazy.
they come with a tail, which I like the
That's
most.
why I won't be standing.
We also have Jordan Morris.
Hi, everybody. Good to be here. The tail is a butt plug.
That's why I won't be standing.
Oh, yeah. I thought somebody needed to
More
kind of
fun
say
when
it,
you're sitting.
Every time I say minus one, it vibrates.
I just love this movie.
When I charge up and light up, it's different.
boy.
Go to
Oh,
GodzillaPlugs.com/Rockstars to get 15% off your vibrating Godzilla tail.
Each bead lights up in order, and then I orgasm.
Oh my gosh. They're 15% off, but they're 100% in.
So this has
Guys,
been demonetized, right?
We also tore him away from the producer's desk. It's Evan Yee!
Hello! I can't wait to talk about Godzilla and not vibrate.
That makes one of us.
Okay. Well, we are definitely going to spoil this movie. So only keep watching if you're okay with spoilers, or if you already watched the movie and you'd like to have this parasocial conversation with us. As you know, we grade these movies in parts. Each part will get a grade of 1 to 5. Half points are also okay. And our off-screen producers will be doing math to get the total number at the end. And in this review today, we'll be grading the script, which is the story and writing, the acting, the visuals, the directing, and the sound and score. Okay, let's start with the script, the story for this bad boy. Godzilla Minus One was written and directed by Takashi Yamazaki. What did everyone think about this script? This kind of Godzilla reboot, I think it's fair to say.
Personally, I thought it was the best ever balance I've seen between the awe of the monster and the drama of the human beings.
Yeah.
Like, that's kind of my log line for the whole experience is usually you watch a monster movie and you're either like, yeah, I needed more monster, or you're like, I don't really care about the people, go to the monster. This felt like they didn't make the humans too prevalent in a way that was like, I don't care about them, why are we watching a drama? You still felt the power of the awe of Godzilla. He was still present, but it correctly manipulated him so that the trauma of Godzilla, what he represents, felt negative while he was awesome. And I don't know if I've ever seen a monster movie instill the theme that you're supposed to feel. I think you watch monster movies, you're like, oh, he represents violence or war or nuclear, but he's cool. This time he was cool, but I was like, oh, that's... And I think that's because of the weight of the human element. So I think that was because of the writing. We'll talk about the acting soon, but the writing and directing, I think, really came from the place of this man clearly loves Godzilla, loves the 70 years of lore, and it's almost like a greatest hits. Like, it's like, now that's what I call Godzilla, because they streamlined it. So Godzilla Concentrate was my jam.
Yeah, I really liked how it was like, it's the story of Godzilla, but also the story of a guy. It's kind of one man's story. And it really made me realize while I was watching it, how kind of modern blockbusters have all these kind of plots that connect. And I like the legendary Godzilla, King Kong movies a lot. I think they're a blast. But what human characters do you care about from those?
That you don't care about the actor of.
Right,
that you're not going oh.
Hey, Bryan Cranston, cool. Yeah. So I think I like those movies a lot. A little hard to lock into the human characters, but I think this, just because it focused on one guy with a really compelling story, was really cool. And it was kind of like how Godzilla affected the life of one man.
One man's struggle with Godzilla.
Yes, exactly. He gained a Godzilla and a family, it turns out.
Oh, God, terrible.
So yeah, really cool. It kind of made me wish modern blockbusters would kind of like focus up on the characters a little
I
bit
did like them that kind of just sticking with one dude as our main thing. And I love like never cutting away to the government, never cut.
Yeah.
We had like a little newsreel of what the old Americans were up to. They were also like, see ya folks, not our problem.
In English, which I loved.
I did like that.
It was like, wait, I'm used to this being in reverse where there's a cut in of another language I don't hear. It was beautifully handled.
That was great. What'd you think about the script for this one, Evan?
Well, it's interesting because when I was thinking about putting this show together, this review, I know that all three of you guys really like Godzilla, right? You've kind of like grown up with it and watched the movies. I've never seen a Godzilla movie.
Really?
Not
This is
even
your
the
first
new,
Godzilla?
not even
Just-
the new like Warner Brothers.
It's a great first
caught
one,
Parts of Godzilla versus Kong, just like the
Okay.
big fight scenes, but I hadn't seen the movie in full. And so this was the one where I was like, all right, let me sit down and like see what this Godzilla guy is all about. And
Who is this Godzilla? Is it?
but I think that what was really interesting is like having not seen this movie before and only really understanding Godzilla through pop culture references and parody and stuff like that, I really thought that this felt like, oh, if I were to sit down and see like a story about like this monster, this is what I want to see. I felt like it was a super strong way to be like, this is, you know, monsters are like, you know, the humans like fear and kind of like what they and what that represents to the not only this one character but also like the country. And I felt like it was like a really, really good way to like, you know, tell this story. Yeah.
I really liked, kind of what you're all saying, especially the one man's kind of journey. I love the representation of kind of like PTSD,
Sure,
like him living with it. You know, Godzilla movies have always been analogous to war and like representing this force that no one controls, that like was created by the U.S. Comes marching through a city and like totally destroys it willy-nilly, doesn't care, has no motive, is just like destroying for whatever reason. And like this movie, it is that still, but also like addresses it very straightforward. Like the people talk about like how they were treated by their own government and like they were left behind and they were forced to like work on their own. So I really liked all of that and like the kind of struggles. I also loved it was over the course of a couple of years. I loved the time jumps, which is really fun.
And
I thought it was just going to be like
growing,
in
time, not just like boo-doo-doo-doo.
Yeah, tiny teenage Godzilla was real cute. Really like that.
I think when he first showed up, I'm like, I think he's supposed to be bigger.
That's the
than
guy. Have we been messing with a baby T-Rex? Is that the concern? Also, the American influence on that young scene was really beautiful. Like the Spielberg influence that like really shaped that movie stuff.
Totally.
I loved.
Only seeing
Very
him
Jurassic
through
Park.
the
very much.
spotlight,
Yeah.
that was a great scene. And this is maybe something to talk a little bit more about when we're talking about the directing. But I think this is the first Godzilla movie I've seen that was pretty scary.
Yeah.
The suspense
Oh my
works.
God.
They're suspenseful, like the first Jurassic Park movie. Like, I feel like Godzilla, by the time I was kind of conscious, was kind of campy. I think maybe the first one I saw was Son of Godzilla on a VHS
Where he
my
has
parents
the
got from
baby?
Kmart. But where he has the baby who does like a little dance.
Certainly not this Godzilla.
No, very different. But I think Godzilla movies are kind of cool like that, where you can have one that's a little more campy, like Godzilla versus Kong, and then this one that is about the horrors of war.
Right.
To wrap up the writing on my side before I give my number, I also want to acknowledge that, you were saying how he's analogous to war, and I think that it's a really beautiful way to represent the trauma of war, especially having something that physically destroys your city. And war is always violent and war is always destructive. And I feel like it's easier for us through the uncanny valley to manipulate it in a positive way. I think a lot of times when you see war, you let yourself be desensitized to it and you look away. Or like say you watch a medical show, you're like, I know that's like sauce. Like you don't let yourself lean in. And I think using a monster to let that trauma hit you in a way that you're struck by the awe of awesome and you lean into the violence, it allows for that analogy of warfare to actually land more because you're more vulnerable. Like you're going to open yourself up emotionally to Godzilla more than you are a war movie because you know how horrible war is. So I think it's kind of this beautiful bait and switch for our emotions to go like, oh, it's a Godzilla movie, I'll be fine. And then to watch something this emotionally wrought that's written about, is your war over yet? It's about whether or not he thinks he's an honorary enough man to take on this family that just shows up at his doorstep, and we know he's honorable enough. It's about a man not being a coward but wanting to live, and how a lot of his acts seem cowardice, but once you think how you'd feel how cowardice isn't that black and white. There's so much metaphor for honor and loyalty in a movie that's discussing a different culture's honor and loyalty while being this metaphor for war, while we're emotionally available because it's a monster movie. 5 slaps.
Yeah.
Okay. 5 from Coy. What do you say?
5 for me. I thought the script was terrific, and nice to see a more focused story in one of these movies.
Yeah, I enjoyed it too. I'll give it a 5.
Yeah,
I really liked it. What do you think compared to all the other Godzilla movies you've seen?
There's some clips you've watched on YouTube.
exactly.
He was waiting for Matthew Broderick the whole time.
Where's Hank Azaria?
The one thing I will say is that I really love that the script played the situation of Godzilla incredibly straight. There's no tongue in cheek. There's nothing and there's nothing that ever feels like like campy or anything like that, right? It's just like completely straight. This is so serious. I do think at some points the script maybe pushes that to like melodrama in certain aspects, but I do think that everything else combined, that like that melodrama fits with the tone of the movie, and I think it really, really exceeds. So I might not give it a 5, but I'll give it a 4.5.
I think that's fair. That's fair. Yeah, it did remind me a lot of like, you know, the director clearly loves the old Godzilla movies. You know, when Spielberg is making Indiana Jones as like a love letter to those kind of B movies of the 50s. Parts of Indiana Jones are very campy, but it's like done in a way where like we're celebrating what these old movies were.
They did a really cool thing where, so I was lucky enough I hosted this premiere, so I got to present this film, and it was such an honor. But Toho, before all of that, in New York for the setup to this, they played the 1954 one on a 35mm print. Whoa. So we got to go to the Japanese council in New York and watch on 35mm the original, and there's like only so many prints left on 35mm, so it was a restored print. And then 2 months later got to watch this, and to see the specific framing, to see the moments
the moments of the tanks.
Oh, dude,
I was like, that is old school.
100% from that.
I love it.
So I love that they like side by side it for us, because you know he's got that memorized. Like the director's like, and that moment, it was beautiful.
Let's talk about the acting in this movie. Lots of new actors that I was not familiar with coming in this movie. What do you guys think of their roles? I loved the main character, Shikishima. Like, I think he had a lot to do, right? He's got to portray like PTSD. I loved him just like being so emotionally vulnerable, like just breaking down into tears. And like, yes, you know, like you were saying, Coy, like, yeah, he saw a giant lizard monster. But also just like the fact that he was supposed to be this kamikaze pilot, purposely didn't go do his mission, and then comes back home. Mom and dad are dead, and the neighbor's like, what the hell are you doing here? My kids are dead. They firebombed Tokyo. Why didn't you die? Like, very interesting, like hard stuff to do.
Again, you know, and the movie does like weirdly like switch genres. Maybe not weirdly, but like interestingly switches genres. Like there are some scenes that are straight up rom-com scenes. Yeah. Like the other plot of this movie is him having to deal with his feisty neighbor and her baby, who just randomly move into his house.
Right.
Like that is a plot of like an 80s movie starring Ted Danson.
Yeah. Like Hugh Grant could have played that role.
Right.
At a certain time.
And when
they just moved into me house.
When they jumped ahead of you, and they were like still just like friends. And not I was like, why aren't you married? What's going on?
I think everyone asking that, especially in like a Japanese culture, like, what do you mean you're not married? And the baby's like, hi, Dad. And I love the moment of like, remember, I'm not your father. I was like, Mom.
Brutal.
Like, dude.
Oh, yeah. So, and it is like, it does have a lot. It is a rom-com in some scenes, and the crew aboard the the mine fishing ship that he has to work on. Those are some like comedy characters. There's a wacky scientist. There's
the like grizzled captain. The young guy who never got to go to war, but like I don't know.
But then they all lend the moral compass. I love that they actually get used. A lot of times comedy characters, like they don't serve a purpose beyond comedy. I love the moment where that kid that wanted to go to war so bad, one on the ship, he's like, don't joke about this. But then at the end, like the honor of him not having to go to war because of the thing they're about to do, they might go off to their death. I'm like, that is beautiful storytelling. So I love that they came back to be like, and remember, we have a purpose.
Totally. They do have goofy nicknames when you meet him. It's like, there's Doc and the kid. But those characters do get little emotional journeys. It is really, really clever.
Was there a great moment on the boat where like they're like, did it work? It didn't work. Right? Those great moments. The reveal that like the Doc on the boat was like, you're some bigwig government official, like pretending to be like, I don't know, I'm just here to kill mine.
I'm just a kooky guy in a boat, you guys know. Also, like the moment of like the shooting of the mine in the water, I thought that action was great, and then the payoff was both comedic and action, and it reminded me of old blockbusters. I think a Spielberg love letter is really appropriate for all the boat stuff.
So much
Jaws. I was like, Jaws meets Godzilla is amazing.
Smile, you bitch! Like really fun stuff. Also, we were talking about before we started filming the little girl.
She's so good.
What an actor! Incredible stuff. We were wondering, are they pinching her to make her cry?
On the foot?
Crying
Like their foot's out of frame, and she just started crying. I was like, what did they do that child?
He's like, did you draw mommy? And she's like, yeah. Sure. I was just like, oh, someone hug this child, please.
Someone just punching a Coco Melon doll off camera. boom.
I mean, like her walking up to the neighbor
She's
with a little
great.
packet, like, where's my daddy?
With
It's
all
just
that money.
Movie kid.
Yeah, acting wise, I feel like there's no weak link, and I love how different everyone's arc was because this guy had to go through everything. Like he would have full like Dragon Ball Z Super Saiyan moments of emotion, and then also have to be very nuanced and be like stoic in public. And I also think that what he had to do to convey to us what he was thinking and going through, even when he was manipulating someone to kick the crap out of him. Like, that was ingenious to be like, I knew if I pissed you off, you'd come find me.
Yeah,
and you're
that
like,
reveal was very fun.
And it was such a great acting performance to be like, that is what he'd have to do by meeting him in the beginning. And all those elements, I think, came through in the acting that would not have worked, even if the script was as tight as it is, without the right actor playing that role.
And when you get that little reveal that when the dude is like, this thing activates the ejector seat.
I know.
Beautiful, beautiful.
When you see him tap it, I've seen the film four times.
You see like a little.
Him, when they pan out, he touches the back of the seat as they're really distant. From
And I think there's a
shot.
label on it that's like in German. So it's
Yeah.
like, because the Japanese weren't building ejector seats, they point that out. And it's just like, you
That's
see
a great
it
detail
come
that's
in,
not their language, that they installed one that wasn't.
And there's obviously tons of cultural things that like I don't get, but still play really well. Like when he's going through the sequence of trying to find a Tachibana, and he's like hitting his head to beg. And like it's like funny, but it's also like you could tell it's like a big deal for him to like be so vulnerable and to like, I'm throwing it all out just to find this guy because he's the only guy who can make this special plane work.
I will say with the ejector really quick, did you guys think that the ejector latch was going to eject the seat when he was like, okay, step one, you have to pull this is the bomb safety.
Oh no, I knew that bomb was going to go off.
So I thought the bomb safety was
going to be the ejector.
Was going to be
and it would surprise him because he was trying to be a kamikaze.
He
committed to being a kamikaze, which I thought was a really interesting subplot of like his acceptance.
Right.
Like he had nothing to want to live for, and how he didn't realize. I also love the love loss plot. Like he didn't realize how much he had in her until she was gone, and then he was willing to do what he was set out to do in the beginning. Because then the end, the payoff, that scene in the hospital is so. So again, at the premiere,
I was bawling. When
I watched this by myself, or with two other people the first time, because they were just they were fixing they were registering the Atmos to the specific theater we watched it in. Like they were that attention to detail. So I'm watching this in a dome with 3 seats and by myself, and I was just like, I'm really affected by this. How will this play in a crowd? But it was really cool at the premiere because the last 10 minutes I needed to be on stage to present the director and the actor. So I was watching the audience watch it.
That's cool.
And it was the entire world flew in. Yeah. So it was all these different cultures, some people reading, some people listening. And as soon as he gets to the hospital, not a dry eye. Everyone just starts, and I was like, this is such a beautiful moment to see what movies
I thought
can
she was
be.
gone.
I totally bought it.
Dude, no, I was like, she's coming back. I don't know what it was.
That
I was
the acting in that scene?
Yeah. My wife was like, I knew she was coming back. We didn't see the body. And I was like, didn't see the
Where's
body.
the body be?
Although I will say, on the topic of seeing the bodies,
Show me the body.
in that first scene, that is so great.
Yeah.
You kind of see the aftermath. Our main character wakes up on the beach after the Godzilla attack, and they're dragging all the bodies up on shore. Godzilla was chomping those guys. There would be nothing left of those guys.
It was funny because I did notice he would grab them, but then like he
wouldn't eat
them.
them.
He wasn't eating them. He wasn't there.
He was like a seagull with a fry.
Yeah. Like, get these bugs out of my way.
But
But they would have some.
Anyway.
Budget note. There's a budget note. Those bodies were whole.
It was an image. He needed to see the body he could see, he could feel that guilt. So I understand how it works story-wise, but also I'm like, there would be nothing left.
I also was like, what? He was like the closest to all those bodies. Did like Tachibana walk over, see he's still alive? He's like, I'm gonna deal with this guy as soon as he's awake. Let me deal with all these bodies first.
And then I'm gonna give this guy the scolding of a lifetime.
He sees this. I want him to see this murder.
I'll be honest, at first I thought Godzilla lined up the bodies.
Like he's a psycho serial killer.
You didn't know that's not something Godzilla normally
I love
does.
your experience of Godzilla the first time. You're like, maybe that's a thing. He just lines up the body like a dog with
he's
kibble.
smart.
Yeah.
Traditional Godzilla
The
movies.
detective from Hannibal comes up. He's leaving us a message.
This is a trail he's left us to
Mr.
find his lair.
Police. Godzilla left you all the
British
clues.
accent surprises me. Godzilla, huh?
Let's give our grades on the acting. We'll start with you, Evan.
I'm also going to give it a 4.5. There's some characters and some roles that I think I wanted a little bit more out of, but the one big note that I had is just I love the main actor, Ryunosuke. He is one of the main voice actors, or he's the main voice actor in Your Name, which is one of the best anime films to come out
I didn't know
the last
that.
couple
That's
years.
a great movie.
He's great in that, and then great in this, and just to see the physicality too for the breakdowns or like the panic attacks that he has, I was like, I'd buy it 100%. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll give it a 4.5 as well. well. Very much enjoyed the acting in this. But there's always room to improve, folks.
I think I'll give it a 5. I think there are some moments where it seems a little over the top, a little soap opera, but I think when you see that like this movie is supposed to be a little more old school, a little more classic, I think that kind of like bigger, more, classic movie acting really fits. And again, I loved how it kind of went through from comedy to drama to action movie, all the flavors in one delicious bowl.
Beautiful.
I'm gonna join the 5. I felt so much raw emotion for new actors I didn't have any exposure to, so I didn't have any weight of their prior work for me. And I also really loved that, like you said, the melodrama, because of how big and elevated Godzilla was, I think the acting had to be huge, and the fact that it was able to be and still feel plausible was so impressive. So I'm going 5 too.
Beautiful, beautiful. Before we continue with our scores, we want to give a quick shout out to our sponsors. Here at the Breakroom, we believe that food is the spice of life, and that spice is the spice of food. That's why we're so stoked to have That Spice Company sponsoring today's show. Which spice company? That Spice Company. That Spice Company makes amazing gourmet spice blends that you can use to elevate your home cooking game. Plus, their chief spice man is a fan of new Rockstars, and we want to support Bobby, his crew, and their delicious spices. We've tried this barbecue ranch, is very good. They also have their good spice. I think that's like a signature spice for them, and it is good, folks. If you want something, if you want something you're grilling to have that really full barbecue flavor, the good blend is super reliable. Personally, though, I like a kick, so that's why I prefer that good fire, because it's a little spicy. It's got a really good mix of sweetness with savory undertones that finish off with a bit of heat. It upgrades anything you put it on. We've been using That Spice Company recipe for good fire sauce and dipping fries in it, and man, it is so good. If you're looking to up your spice game, either click on the link in the description below or head to thatspicecompany.com and use code ROCKSTARS15. That's ROCKSTARS15 to save 15% on your order at checkout. Perfect. I did perfect. I graded myself. Also, we want to remind you to check out NerdRiot.shop.
Let's everybody give Brandon's ad read.
All right,
and a 5 for these
board.
delicious spices.
A little melodramatic, but it fit with the tone.
Sure, yeah. It's kind of going for an old school ad read. Kind of a stylized.
Early podcast era ad read when the scripts were written.
What's up, gents? Did your wife burn the cooking again? No worries with thatspicecompany.com.
Put it on your ham hocks.
We want to remind you to check out nerdriot.shop for a ton of great merch to celebrate the holiday season. We got a Best Bubs shirt. We got some mugs. We got all sorts of great stuff. December 11th is the last day if you want to order your items to get there by Christmas. There'll be plenty of days after that. Grabbing merch from nerdriot.shop is a great way to support the Breakroom. So either click in the link in the description below or head to nerdriot.shop right now or after you finish this video or whenever you have some free time. Okay, let's talk about the visuals for this film. I'm going to be a 5. I don't need to really get into the work of it. We can talk about the visuals. I could have taken 10 more Godzilla scenes. I don't know, but the water stuff looked incredible.
Awesome.
The moment where he's trying to get Godzilla to follow him, and that tail comes out of nowhere. I love that.
Dude, the scene where they first do the heat wave, the first time when they decimate the city, that one we've talked a lot about the
we like the spikes coming out and then going back in,
and then it's gone.
Right,
like the blinding white of an empty. The impact of that is better than most blockbusters.
Also, calling it a heat ray is a little weak.
Yeah, it's a little minimizing of what just happened. Yeah, they call it a heat ray. I'm like, I think you get a lot more.
This is an extinction blast.
And they said heat ray because you'd already seen that, and then they say we gotta watch out for his heat ray. I was like, oh, is this a new?
Is there another hour?
Oh no, they're calling this decimating thing a heat ray. I kind of love the nod to classic man in suit Godzilla. Right? He stands upright. He walks kind of slow. He's got the little arms, and he doesn't look down ever. He's just kind of always looking ahead.
He doesn't need to. Why would Godzilla look
doesn't care about the stuff.
I will say Godzilla in this excellent posture. Stands very
just so tall.
You could see him walking around with a book on his head, practicing. And again, a nod to that kind of man in a suit design. I'll say it. I think we were all thinking it. Daddy thick.
He's a chunky boy.
He's a thick king.
He had a little gut, which I appreciate as a man with a gut.
Yeah.
He's got a little gut. He's not toned.
No.
Doesn't have that.
That's the Matthew Broderick Godzilla. That's Hank Azaria inside those Godzilla.
That's sexy American Godzilla. No, I don't want that.
This man's living.
Yeah, this man's got a traditional Godzilla body.
That's also why we knew he'd eat those bodies whole, because that man's thick.
I think we could say thick thighs end lives.
It's totally true. I also love the scientific explanation of how he's not standing on the ocean floor. It's like he's buoyant enough that he can like be upright in the water,
Yeah.
even though it's
Little
much
kicks.
deeper. Yeah, all I could think about was his little
Him
legs.
doing little,
Yeah.
But he's like waiting.
That's why
Like
they
they teach
never
you in your-
showed an underwater shot. It'd been like.
Godzilla took a rec center swim class when he was
Right.
5 and learned how to do this.
He doggy paddles like the rest of us.
This is like a really tiny thing, but we mentioned like the tank thing, very old school,
Yeah.
like when the tanks kind of square up and shoot against in the battleship. When they're loading on those the devices that are both the Freon gas and the air bubble things, and these giant things that they've built in like 2 days. That's like so traditional Godzilla movie for me, where like they come up with a solution. I love the like weird scientific solution they have to defeat this guy. No crazy weapon, just like we're gonna use pressure and like gas.
Right, and balloons.
And balloons.
Yeah.
But the stacking up of those things, I was like, that is such a. To me, it just really rang traditional Godzilla.
Yeah.
Like just the way it all looked. This very mechanical answer for
That
Godzilla.
first one had the 1954. The original Godzilla had a thing where it was taking the oxygen out of the water.
Oh, okay.
So I thought it was
to
really
make
cool.
him sink.
Yeah,
Like, kind of the same
and
thing.
like, and it would kind of like pull his flesh apart because there's a void. So it's kind of like a black hole in the water.
Yeah.
So I like that in this one. It was a similar thing, but sinking like
They're like, we're gonna give him the bends. That's how
70
we're
years.
gonna
Well, like
beat
7 years later, we're
Yeah.
like, I don't know if I buy that. Like the audience has more scientific mindedness. So I like that this
Yeah.
thing. I'm like, would that work? And I have no idea because they convinced me with the science scenes. I was like, maybe that's how carbon
I was like the
dioxide
guys.
works.
I was like the guys at the meeting when it sunk. I went, whoa! Whoa! They really popped for that. They really got it.
Yeah. Well, what a great reasoning too about why they couldn't use big weapons. They're like,
Yeah.
you can't because it's gonna anger U.S. and Russia. It's gonna be
Right, that was like a funny
struggle.
thing,
And I was
too.
like, wow, that's so. That has to be a consideration in this world. It's literally post-war Japan.
And you know, Douglas MacArthur, whatever you think about him, he definitely would have been like, giant monster heading for Japan. We got to get the fuck out of here. Let's get our troops out. Let's get our boys home, man.
And those visuals were fun too. When they did
Yeah.
the American scene, and it was just like pew pew, and it was that classic, 40s movie.
Yeah,
like that.
yeah.
And
The
then you come
newsreel
back to
kinda
that,
thing.
and then you come back to our stuff, and it's the way it's framed is almost like Nolan's Dunkirk with Spielberg's on the ground stuff. So it had a lot of American framing with these incredible special effects that were $15 million. This movie was
crazy.
literally. Now I've tweeted about this, and a lot of people are mad because apparently Japan.
On Twitter?
Oh,
Somebody's
Film
mad?
Twitter? Film Twitter?
No, I think you're on the wrong website. because
Apparently,
no
there's
one on
different
Film Twitter.
scales for budget. Like $59 million over there is like their most expensive, whereas we make $300 million. But no matter what, a $15 million, that's crafty on a Marvel movie.
Yeah.
So
Totally.
the fact they were able to make this, because the director isn't just the director, he was the writer, and he's the lead visual effects guy.
Yeah.
So this guy would,
He'd work on it at night, right?
we literally we spoke on set, and he would finish a day of filming. He would go home and work on it, and then the crew would want to see what he'd done. So they got more and more invested in making sure they did their job. So by the end, they were watching pieces of the film as they were filming it, and it was all happening in real time. So he'd like play around with the sound, play it for the team. So he was so proud of the collaboration because everyone had little input because he was making the movie while making the movie, which is unheard of.
Yeah.
And that's how the budget. I mean, part of how the budget is like that's crazy.
Shout out to like the Quarter Crew has a great video
Mm-hmm.
where they interview the director about this, and he kind of talks about what you're mentioning, and he admits he's like I did kind of rudimentary stuff and sent it off to some
Sure.
people
But
to
the
finish it.
lead,
And
the
they
guy
did
that
great
started
stuff.
it.
Yeah, but they point out a good thing that it's probably for a movie like this that's so like heavy on visual effects to have a director who really understands that and like can work on it in real time. Whereas like a lot of times with these Marvel movies, the director does all the like character shots, and then when it comes to like the third act battle, they're like, don't worry, we started working on that 2 years ago. We'll pop it into your movie.
10
And it
different
doesn't
visual
mesh.
effects
Yeah.
companies who have nothing to do with each other are all working on these separately.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, just great visuals for this film. And like at some points you can see the seams a little bit.
Sure.
The
Yeah.
digital seams, obviously not a man in a suit. But like, it never took me out of it. And it was like so fun. And just like, man, when you're going into a city and you're like, it's about to get there. It's like the dread you feel. And just seeing like, a train come flying in out of nowhere.
Even the plane stuff.
Yeah.
Like the train was amazing,
Yeah.
but the
Right.
plane stuff when you're with him and you love this guy and you're feeling all that, and then that last shot of him like right and like the whole
just
theater.
sticks.
Yeah, no wiggle, just like
Yeah.
and
Yeah,
the
yeah.
impact of that. The visuals are insane.
Yeah.
5 for me visually.
And then the special effects aside too, like just all the production design that went into like making it really feel like the late 40s, the mid 40s, like the costume, just like the
His little
wreckage
old motorcycle
everywhere.
is so cute.
I was like this, and we're about to get into it too. But it really did feel like this is like what sets it in this world. But I think just because of the moments where like for me where you could see the seams were also those same scenes where it was like the just humans by themselves. There was some like lighting that like. Just being someone who is very visually minded, like, I wish you could make the light a little softer. It's like very nitpicky. But those are the moments where I was like, it feels it feels really like in the world, but maybe is not the part of the visually like that shines.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I'm gonna give it 4.5. Yeah. That 0.5 is the nitpick there. Yeah.
That's your nitpick? I'll give it a 5, even though I was a little nitpicky. I think it really sold it for me and felt great, felt big, lots of fun.
Yeah, 5. I think you have some shots, some just CGI shots that maybe don't look as great as like the legendary movies, if that's kind of what you're used to. But I think it's a great. This is a great kind of lesson in like doing more with less.
Yeah.
Maybe
it reminds me of like District 9 or something like that.
Totally,
like,
yeah.
It really gets away with more than its budget.
Yeah, it's like the suspense scenes are suspenseful, the scary scenes are scary, not because they have the biggest budget, because they're doing the right thing with it.
Yeah.
So it's a 5 for me.
Yep, 5 for me. I can't think of anything I'd want more of, especially at that scale budget. But even if you took out Godzilla, the framing of the emotion, whether it's rom-com or the Jaws sequences, those frames tell such a beautiful story. So visuals being both the framing, the cinematography, as well as the VFX, no notes. I've seen $200 million movies look way worse.
I think you're onto something. The next one should be Godzilla Minus Godzilla. A Godzilla movie with no Godzilla.
Oh, Godzilla Minus 2, but it's him.
Oh my god. Yeah. It just shows. It's like, is he just getting?
I know. I just want to see this guy raise this baby.
Yeah. I do think we have something happening at the end with that. Like,
what was the next thing?
Yeah, I think there's another.
I think she's gonna be able to speak to Godzilla.
Oh dang.
I think there's another monster coming, and like it's summoned by her.
Yeah.
I think we get
she'll
like
have
a
like a
monster or something.
telekinetic. I think they're gonna go really crazy in the
Oh,
next
that's
one.
right. Because there's there's always these
always
movies have a
some-
lot of someone who can psychically link to the monsters.
Yeah. Even the new ones, the legendary ones, there,
Yeah,
right?
sure.
Let's grade the directing real fast.
Before we do that, sorry, it's 3:59 right now, so let's run through this really quick. So we'll do the directing, combine it with the sound, and then just be like,
I can do as late as like 4:10. I just got
Okay, but yeah, I'll keep an eye.
We don't have to talk about it too much if you want. We can just go through it.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Let's grade the directing real quick. We've talked about it a lot already. Director Takashi Yamazaki. I'll give him a 5. I think he did a great job.
Yeah.
I'm no director, but yeah, I think he really nailed it. Like a lot of love for this movie.
Yeah, I mean, everything we've been saying this whole episode, I think it all really just, like, it stems from him. Like, this very clear vision of, like, what he wanted to do with this movie. And also, like, the clear, I mean, Coy and I have talked about this off air a lot. There's just the passion that it feels like he has for the material. And while I was watching it, it really felt like it truly, not only was it like a period piece, but I was like, this feels part of history. Like, this feels so convincing to me that this is all, like, real. And I was just so in awe that like a movie of this genre could like have that effect on me. So for me, yeah, definitely a 5. Yeah.
So few movies feel immediately classic to me.
Totally.
And I think that's a lot like the director, not only like a documentary almost, but like the importance. And to me, directing is the cinematographer's relationship in making the frame. The direction is also the performances you get from the actor. The director is also the passion for the film. And then it's the overall product. Like there's so much that goes into directing. You have to be so many things. And there's none of those many hats this man wore that felt like a weakness in his directing. Yeah. So I mean, 5 is a perfect score. And I cannot think of a director that feels this much passion for their character. This felt like almost like the first time you see Iron Man, where like you're like, man, Jon Favreau loves this because there's that spontaneity, there's that pizzazz, there's that improv nature that feels like, how did they film this? But there's also the love for the character that moves you through even the scenes the character isn't in, and then immediate classic feeling. So 5 for me.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting that this is the Godzilla movie we're getting after Shin Godzilla, which I think people also love.
Yeah.
Like that's also considered a classic because it's a little weirder, it's a little more of a comedy. It's kind of something you don't expect from a Godzilla movie. It is weirdly an office comedy.
Yes, it's so weird.
It's closer to Veep than it is to Godzilla. So it is interesting that you can have someone come in after this one that I think all Godzilla fans really like and say like, I'm doing something different with it. We're going back to the kind of original vibe. And it's really cool. It's a vision and totally something to see in theaters. 5 for me.
Beautiful. Wowie, wow. Okay, let's talk about finally the score and the sound of this movie. I mean, what do you think of the music? The classic Godzilla theme when he comes around the corner. That slaps every time. Slaps every time.
Every time.
And by the end, you know, I took my wife to this. She's seen the legendary Godzilla ones, the newer ones, because I forced her to watch those. She hasn't seen a classic like Toho style one. And by the end, she was like humming that theme. I mean, that theme sticks with you. It is good. And when it comes back later and you're like, oh, I know what this means. God, it leaves like that pit in your stomach.
Yeah.
So good. So
I
good.
don't think there's a lot of scores that quite have the impact of the Godzilla main score. Like you have your classic Danny Elfmans, you've got your Indiana Jones,
Got
you've
some
got
Zimmers in there. Yeah, you got some John Williams all over the place.
But like
Spirit of the Cimarron. What a soundtrack.
there it is.
That's
But
a good soundtrack.
when you have something that like is an earworm but also causes emotion, it's not like a jingle, but it's an earworm.
It's that pit, it's the Jaws theme, right? Where you're like, oh no.
I've been doing stories in my Instagram and just getting 15 seconds of this. I'm like, gotta run or something. Like 15 seconds of this makes you want to do.
You gotta run if you
hear that, you're going.
You gotta run.
So and the fact that I got to hear them like measuring this in Atmos was so cool because I got to hear like the levels in it. So sitting in a room like of that power. But you can also do it with like Bose headphones. It's a good, huge or small is my point. Like this movie just has an impact.
The roar
as well.
rumbled the theater. And I saw this in a AMC Prime, which has like some rumbleness to it. But we were next door to Beyonce's IMAX, and I could not hear any Beyonce.
Wow.
That's how good the sound was in this
That's
theater.
impressive. I wonder how many roars Beyonce heard. Or like that audience.
She might have heard. They might have a couple.
Like in between songs, like setups, there's just like.
That's the next team up. Beyonce x Godzilla.
If Beyonce or
a
Jay-Z
new
ever
renaissance.
sampled Godzilla, that is minus Renaissance. I want
Minus
them to
Renaissance.
sample this Godzilla minus Renaissance.
Yeah.
I had the '98 soundtrack that had a Green Day song with some Godzilla roars in it.
Good,
Still
good
P. Diddy's
Wallflower
best.
song on
Good
that.
Wallflower song. Good
song.
Jamiroquai song on that.
P. Diddy's best work.
We don't talk about P. Diddy anymore. He's out.
That's one
He's
good
out.
work. Singular good work.
He's out.
His one.
He's out.
I think for me, like, I know that we kind of joke sometimes that this category being last on the movie reviews is like very like anticlimactic, but for me, this is really what put the movie over. Obviously, besides the directing, but when the first scene happened, I was watching it and I heard so many things about the visuals, like the special effects being good, and then I was like watching it and I was like, I don't know, like the camera work is maybe not as
so
good as I
small.
think it'd be. Like even before he shows up, but then I was like, some of this stuff looks like I could have shot it in film school, but why does it feel different? And what it was the sound, just the way that they're using like the atmosphere and then the Godzilla bass and all that stuff, and just like music aside, just the pure sound mix and design of it, especially in the AMC Prime, so good. I was like so sold on it. So 4.5 for me.
Beautiful,
It's hard for me to give a perfect
I love
5.
that you're just like it changed everything.
4.5.
Hey, that's always right. That's always
Everybody's
right.
got scales.
Yeah.
It's hard to judge. It was really good sound. I thought the Billie Eilish song was a little weird in the middle, but other than that, I'm joking, Evan. Don't.
I was like, wait a second.
No, I really like the
Evan
sound.
saves his 5s for the Taylor Swift Eras movie. We know.
Honestly, 5's all board. No, you know what? I'll change mine to a 5.
Oh, there you go. There you go.
I forgot to mention that I was gonna be like Dashiell didn't really like the score, so I was gonna like include
You
Dashiell's
got
score.
Barry Dashiell?
But now I'm
You're
like,
throwing
I
your
don't know.
0.5 at Dashiell.
Oh my gosh. I mean,
Dashiell jumped off a bridge. Would you jump off a bridge?
I had no
4.5 out of 5 times.
No problem with the score. The roars were loud. The explosions were loud.
Yeah.
All the classic sound effects of Godzilla are there. They didn't try to mess with those. The roar felt really classic. Like, he wasn't trying to do a new roar.
Yeah.
It was like, this is the Godzilla
No accents,
roar.
Godzilla. You stick to
Yeah.
the classics.
Yeah, is there a
Just the
more
classics.
iconic sound in movies?
Yeah.
Maybe not. I don't know.
Yeah, I got to give it a 5. It's a 5 for me.
Same here. Another great reason to see it in a theater. It
Right.
sounds-
Yeah,
Yes, definitely
yeah.
see this
See
one
the
in the
theater.
theater.
Yeah.
I recommend
I'm
it.
going 5 for a few reasons. One, the obvious, the Godzilla elements, but also the silence use after the heat wave was especially like that silence where it's like, oh my god, and that bravery to have silence there.
Yeah.
And also the moments where the dialogue isn't overstripped by the emotional score as well as the Godzilla score. It's hard
Yeah.
to sound mix things like
Yeah.
that and make it impactful, especially in a subtitled film. And I think also the loading up before heatwave sound
my
is
God,
new
it's
and unique.
great, yeah.
So I got to go 5 for like a bevy of reasons, but those are some highlights.
That's great to point out the silence because I think a lot of modern movies would put the ear ringing sound there, right?
Yeah.
Oh, that's a good point. Yeah.
Post like Saving Private Ryan, they would put
Yeah.
that in there to make you, the audience, feel like what just happened.
Instead,
But
you're
the silence
just
was
cold.
frightening because you're immediately I'm like, where's Godzilla?
Yeah.
Like, is he
You
still
look
here? Is
around.
he gone? Like, great stuff. Is he gonna grab me and then toss me up in
And
there
then
with
his
little dog
disorientation
face?
is yours. Like
Yeah.
you're disoriented with him.
And immediately you're like, where's Noriko? Find Noriko, you jerk! Marry her! What are you doing?
Why haven't you married her?
Take care of that baby.
Yeah.
Make sure it never cries again.
Stop pinching its leg and take care of that baby.
Yeah, the old captain being like, "You better not go kill yourself, you son of a bitch. You
Yeah.
got a kid to take care of."
Oh, that guy was
not
so
answering
great.
me.
He's not answering the phone.
And that's the acting. How many supporting
Yeah.
characters had like 10 minutes? And we're like, that guy.
Yeah.
There were so
Yeah.
many great
Just
people.
great. Everyone was like great and really loved each other and beautiful.
The scene when they're deciding to do the plan and then people are being like politely like they have
Yeah,
to
yeah.
decline, but then the guys, well, it's like, well, it's not a certain chance of death, right? It's better than war.
Better than war.
And I was like, that's what it's. Oh God.
And the
moment's
general
so
being like
good.
that guy, and then
Yeah.
as soon as you see like his cracks in the mold, and like he's got 2 scenes,
Yeah.
or the at the end when we get that like rallying of everyone that like has been a dick to our guy, and
Yeah,
now like
yeah.
we feel there's so much emotion connected to these
Yeah.
actors.
Yeah,
I love the balloon guys too. They were so proud of their jobs. We're the balloon guys. We're from the whatever balloon company, and we made these balloons, and they're gonna fucking work.
It takes
we wore our
a
uniforms.
village to
Yeah.
kill Godzilla.
They're like, we're gonna be on the boats. We know we're just
Yeah.
balloon guys, but we're gonna be on the boats. We gotta make sure those balloons go off.
The fact that in 80 years, 70 years later, the character is this strong, and the fact that it's 80 years after the war that
Yeah.
it's made after, and the fact that we have to make commentaries like this is sad. Like the fact that the world hasn't changed
Yeah.
as much as it should have in how many generations. But what's beautiful is, to me, that a story about vengeance is the subplot in that this is a movie about life. And a lot of war movies are about living, but they're about living to appreciate the absence of war. This movie acknowledges war, but it's about celebrating life even at the cost of things without being about duty. Because I really struggle as a person that thinks like, I'm not really fucking with war. But a lot of movies that are about war are like, well, it's your duty, then you get the reward of
Right,
life.
right.
This doesn't play that. It goes like, hey, celebrate life no matter what, no matter when, no matter how. And it's a war movie. So I think one of the most beautiful things is this shouldn't have to be a commentary. And I think the best movies are answers to solutions that we can't have in real life. And the fact that it's a monster movie, I think that this is not only perfect but important. And I hope there's a day we don't need Godzilla.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with all of that, and I think that our final number reflects that really well because our final number is 98. I think this might be the highest rated movie
pretty high.
in the time that we've
Higher
been
than
doing this
Morbius?
series.
We'll have to go back to
gotta
the
go.
tape.
It's Zilly
We'll have to go
time.
back to the tape.
Yes,
We'll have to go
Zilla
back
time.
to the tape on that one. Well, that's a great final number for a great film. If you watch this and you haven't seen Godzilla Minus One, you're a maniac. But go see it if you haven't seen it, and I hope we convince you to go see it. Did we spoil a Godzilla movie? How can you? It's a Godzilla movie. You know what's happening. But that's it for us today. Make sure to subscribe to the Breakroom channel right here on YouTube, and give us a follow on Twitch where we do these videos live. Be sure to follow at Breakroom and on all social channels. Thank you for tuning in today. We'll catch you next time. Late SKS. Goodbye.